We all know that Warner Brothers Discovery is an absolute mess. But what we're going to take a look at is 10 DC characters who have yet to appear in live action that need to be developed. Coming up next on this video from Bronzeville Comics. Hey there, comic book community. This is Jim from Bronzeville Comics coming to you with another video. And before we get started, please like, comment, subscribe, do all that great stuff. The algorithms of all those things help the channel. And also follow us on other social media. Instagram at Bronzeville_comics. I sell on Whatnot. We have sales every Monday night at 10 p.m. Using Bronzeville_comics there. And if you're not yet on Whatnot but are interested, you can click the link in the description to sign up, and you'll get $10 off your first order. Also, I have an eBay store with some of my more unique items, and that can also be found in the description below. DC live-action properties, both on movies and TV, have been around since the 1940s, and DC Comics, with an 87-year history, have a rich number of characters, many of whom have not yet been included in live action. Now, a lot of these, if not all of them, have been included in animated form, either in TV series or in movies, but none of these characters have appeared in live action. The first live action superhero to appear was Captain Marvel, who was then a property of Fawcett Comics back in a movie serial in the 1940s, and DC characters such as Batman, Congo Bill, Spy Smasher, and Hap Harrigan all appeared in the serials. TV series started appearing in the 1950s. We had Adventures of Superman in the 50s, Batman in the 60s, Wonder Woman in the 70s, and many more. And it's been in recent years, Smallville introduced a lot of characters, as has the Arrowverse. And we've also had the DC Extended Universe, which has had its ups and downs, but also with Suicide Squad, and the Suicide Squad has included a lot of marginal characters. But I'm going to talk about 10 characters that we have never seen in live action that we really need to. Now, there are a lot of characters that could have made this list. There are members of the Legion of Superheroes, but some of those members have appeared in Smallville and Supergirl. And I do think the Legion of Superheroes is a property that can be developed. Some of the Justice Society characters we haven't seen yet. And there are a lot more. Animal Man, Captain Atom, so many more we have yet to see in live action. But here are my top 10. And we're going to start with a character who needs to be seen in live action, and that's Deadman. Deadman was created by Arnold Drake and Carmine Infantino and debuted here in Strange Adventures 205 with a cover date of October 1967. Now, it was, I believe, in the next issue that Neil Adams took over the art and helped popularize the character for generations to come. Neil Adams has been such an influential artist that other artists have been attracted to properties that he has worked on. Boston Brand was a circus aerialist who was shot and killed by a one-handed man called the Hook. And he spent most of the run of Strange Adventures trying to solve his own murder. And he was given the abilities to inhabit other human beings. So in the comic books, you'd see kind of a halo around the characters, and you knew that Deadman was inside running the show. He did have subsequent appearances in a Neil Adams art in Brave and the Bold. He also appeared in Forever People and Aquaman in the Silver and Bronze Age. Now, in more recent years, Deadman has been a member of the Justice League Dark. There was a TV series for Deadman in development for TNT in the early 2000s. And in 2011, Eric Kripke, one of the creators of the Supernatural TV show, was set to develop a show for CW, but that's kind of when the Arrowverse took over and Deadman plans were scrapped. Guillermo del Toro was supposedly interested in developing a feature film, but nothing has come of all that. We've also had rumors of Justice League Dark property being developed, but we have yet to see any of these in live action. And if there is a Justice League Dark, I would be shocked if Deadman wasn't a prime member. Also, there have been stories recently about Deadman being the narrator of an anthology series. There was talk when HBO Max was first launched of a Strange Adventures TV series, but that show has been scrapped. So we're going to have to wait to see Dead Man. Number 9 on my list, The Question. Created by Steve Ditko for Charlton Comics in Blue Beetle #1 in June of 1967. He was created by Ditko as an adherent of objectivism, the philosophical belief created by Ayn Rand. Mr. Ditko also created a character, Mr. A, who was similar. He was Vic Sage, a TV journalist who created a concoction that changed the color of his suit and a mask that gave him no features, and he operated out of Hub City. Now, when DC bought the Charlton characters in 1983, which also included Blue Beetle and Captain Atom, Judo Master and Peacemaker, they incorporated them into their mythos with the Crisis on Infinite Earth series, and the Question can be seen briefly there. When Alan Moore was developing Watchmen, he was developing it with the Charlton characters in mind. But since there was a fairly definitive end to the Watchmen story, and this was before Elseworlds, DC wanted to use these characters going forward. They figured the profit from a 12-issue miniseries would not be the same as using the characters in ongoing series and as members of teams. So instead, other characters were developed which are clearly based on the Charlton characters, and Rorschach is the replacement kind of for The Question. The Question did have his own 36-issue series that ran from 1987 to 1990, scripted by Denny O'Neil with art by Dennis Cowan. And a lot of people may remember him from his run in Justice League Unlimited, where he did have a prominent role in several storylines as a paranoid conspiracy theorist. There were plans to use him in the Arrowverse, but supposedly they were blocked by DC, who wanted to use him in another project, potentially a movie. That's never happened. There have been references to Hub City in some of the Arrowverse shows, but we never saw The Question. The second Question in DC Comics was the former Gotham City police officer Renee Montoya, who was portrayed by Rosie Perez in the Birds of Prey movie, but we haven't seen the original Question, Vic Sage. Number 8 on the list is Static. Premiering in number 1 of his own series in June of 1993 and created by Dwayne McDuffie and Dennis Cowan, under the Milestone imprint, which was an imprint initially of 5 titles with African-American creators. Static ran in his own series for 45 issues through 1997. Virgil Hawkins was a high schooler who was doused with an experimental chemical and developed electromagnetic powers. Now, the series kind of petered out, and those last several issues are very pricey because of the low print runs. The series ended in 1997, and in 2001, WB Kids produced a Static Shock animated series that ran through 2004, wildly popularizing the character. Later on, the Static was incorporated into DC continuity, became a member of the Teen Titans. We have seen Static used in the Young Justice TV series, and there had been rumors of a TV series in the works. But we have yet to see him. At DC Fandom in 2020, right, the online event that took place in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic, it was announced that there was a movie in development with Michael B. Jordan's production company attached, and there was a writer hired, but we haven't heard anything concretely since. So Static still sits in limbo, and we don't know where that project sits with the merger of Discovery and Warner Brothers and the uncertainty surrounding all the properties therein. Number 7 on the list, Etrigan the Demon. He's a Jack Kirby creation who premiered in his own self-titled series in August of 1972. And it was one of the series, along with Commandy and later OMAC, that Kirby developed for DC after the cancellation of the New Gods, which wasn't really his choice, but he did develop this character of the demon. It was a demon who, during Camelot, Merlin bonded the demon with Jason Blood, who was a knight in King Arthur's Round Table. And then we fast forward to present day, where Jason Blood is a demonologist working in Gotham City, and he discovers a poem in Merlin's tomb that causes him to trade places with Etrigan. Now, Etrigan is not really a superhero. He's a demon, so he does bad things. Sometimes he does good things. And over time, it wasn't something that Kirby originally conceived of, but over time, it was that the demon always spoke in rhyme. We have seen him in animated shows like Justice League Unlimited and Brave and the Bold, but not in live action. Now, interestingly, the demon was in the original Neil Gaiman run of the Sandman comic. For those of you that watched the Netflix series, he wasn't incorporated in the story that was based on his appearance in the comic book. When in the comics, when Dream went to hell to retrieve his helm, it was Etrigan who was his guide. And he was not included in the Netflix series because the Netflix series really didn't include any of the DC Comics characters other than non-superhero, supervillain characters like the Dr. Destiny character and Lyta Trevor, who has a complicated background. She's Wonder Woman's daughter from Earth 2, and it gets a little wonky after that. But anyway, Etrigan was not used in the Netflix TV series. Now, with CGI such as it is, Etrigan could be a very interesting character to use in live action. Number 6 on my list is another Jack Kirby creation, and that's Mr. Miracle, who also premiered in his own self-titled series. And I think he was only the second DC character, certainly the first one after the Silver Age, to premiere in issue number 1 of his own self-titled series. That was Mr. Miracle number 1 in April of 1971, part of Jack Kirby's fourth world of characters. In the comics, Mr. Miracle is scot-free, the son of Highfather, the ruler of New Genesis. And there was a trade of eldest sons between Highfather and Darkseid, the ruler of Apocalypse, to try to keep the peace between the two planets. Scot-free was then put into basically the work orphanage, raised by Granny Goodness, and eventually, with Darkseid's knowing, he escaped to Earth because that could then nullify the agreement between Apocalypse and New Genesis, and Darkseid could start war once again. Now, we have seen other Fourth World characters in live action, most specifically Steppenwolf in the Justice League movie, and we did see a little bit of Darkseid and a little bit of Granny Goodness in the Snyder Cut. In issue number 4 of his series, introduced Big Barta, his romantic interest and eventual wife. Both of them became members of the Justice League after the Legends miniseries in the mid-1980s. And he also was briefly in the Sandman comic book run. In issue number 5, Morpheus visits scot-free in his dreams as he's dreaming about his upbringing on Apocalypse, and he's trying to find out where his ruby is because the Justice League has it after defeating Dr. Destiny. And Mr. Miracle doesn't know, but he knows someone who does, the Martian Manhunter, and eventually Sandman retrieves the ruby from the Justice League satellite. Of course, none of that was included in the Netflix series. Now, Anna DuVernay and comic book writer Tom King had a New Gods movie in development that would have included both Mr. Miracle and Big Barta that was canceled, even before the Discovery merger. So I think the New Gods in general and Mr. Miracle in particular are characters who we will see if Discovery Warner Brothers ever gets their act together. Number 5 on my list, Batman Beyond. Terry McGinnis premiered in Batman Beyond number 1 in March of 1999 in the comic books, which was based on the animated TV series. Now, the comic came up shortly after the TV series began, kind of to help promote the animated series on the Kids WB that ran from January of 1999 through 2001. Terry McGinnis finds out that Bruce Wayne was Batman, who's now retired because he's older, and eventually this takes place in the future, and he becomes the new Batman, Batman Beyond. There were a couple of series in the comics, and then in October 2005, Batman Beyond was introduced into regular DC continuity in Superman Batman number 22, but it was revealed that that was really Tim Drake in the future. And his first official appearance of Batman Beyond was in Superman Batman Annual number 4. There is a new ongoing series for Batman Beyond, and the character has been fully integrated into DC continuity. There have been numerous animated projects. It's the animated show, and its offspring are wildly popular, as is the character. But we haven't seen him yet in live action. There was thoughts that the use of the Michael Keaton Batman in DC films would portend the future of Terry McGinnis. But, as we know now, the Batgirl movie with Keaton was supposed to appear and was canceled. He's been removed, evidently, from the Flash movie and replaced with Ben Affleck. Now, we can hold out hope that maybe we will see Michael Keaton play a Batman of the future, being the mentor to Terry McGinnis, and see him at some point there. Number 4 on the list is a character who's been around since the Golden Age and even had his own animated TV series, and that is Plastic Man. Plastic Man premiered in Police Comics #1 in August of 1941, published by Quality Comics. And the feature of Plastic Man was created by Jack Cole. Plastic Man is originally a gangster by the name of E.L. O'Brien. In a heist, he's shot in the shoulder and doused with some mysterious chemicals, and when he wakes up at a monastery, he has all sorts of stretchy powers. The 1940 series and most subsequent series were very comedic. He is joined by his sidekick, Woozy Winks, who, that is a comic name if you ever heard one. And in addition to his appearances in Police Comics, he had his own self-titled quarterly series that ran from 1943 all the way to 1956. Pretty much lasted right to the edge of the Silver Age. Now, in 1956, Quality Comics stopped publishing comics, and they were bought out by DC Comics. Two of the more popular titles were war titles that they had at the time, Black Hawk and G.I. Combat, that DC continued, and they also bought several of the Quality Comics characters, who, in addition to Plastic Man, also include characters they included in the Freedom Fighters, such as Phantom Lady, The Ray, Uncle Sam. And they rebooted Plastic Man in the Silver Age. Now, his first appearance in the Silver Age is kind of House of Mystery number 160, July of 1966, in the Dial H for Hero feature, where Robbie Reed, the little kid who has his hero dial, he dials up Hero, and he becomes Plastic Man. So it's really not Plastic Man, it's him becoming Plastic Man. Just a few months later, in July of 1966, DC launched a new Plastic Man series, which was supposedly the son of Plastic Man. Lasted a little while, and then we didn't see Plastic Man until the 70s. He did appear in a Super Friends episode. There was a planned filmation series that I'm not sure if it would have been live action, because to try to pull that off with the special effects, especially on the filmation budget at the time, would have been quite difficult. But Plastic Man was in his own animated series, the Plastic Man Comedy Adventure Hour. It ran on Saturday mornings from 1979 through 1981. Now, as early as the 1990s, the Wachowski sisters, who had written the Matrix series, wrote a screenplay for a Plastic Man movie that never came to fruition. And in December 2018, a new movie was planned with a screenplay written. Later in development, the idea was to have a gender swap and have it, I guess, be a plastic woman instead of Plastic Man, but we haven't seen anything yet. The Plastic Man's a little bit of an interesting character because of that comedic element, and also how similar his powers are to Reed Richards' Mr. Fantastic, who we're soon going to be getting in the MCU. Obviously going the comedic route, and it's almost a surrealistic route that I think DC would have to go to differentiate the two characters. Now, in many cases, DC kind of replaced Plastic Man with Elongated Man in the 1960s. We have seen Elongated Man on the Flash TV series. Number 3 on the list, Damian Wayne, Robin. His first appearance was in Batman 655 as a cameo in December 2006, but actually it was the retcon of a graphic novel from 1987, Batman Son of the Demon, written by Mike Barr with art by Jerry Bingham, in which Batman meets up with the Al Ghuls, Ra's al Ghul and Talia. Well, something goes on between Batman and Talia, and at the very end of the story, it's shown that Talia has had a child. That was considered not in regular DC continuity for years. And then when Grant Morrison took over the run and started this series, he brought this idea of a child of Bruce Wayne and Talia al Ghul back. Damian Wayne was raised by the League of Assassins to be an assassin, raised by his grandfather, Raj Al Ghul. And Batman didn't know that he existed. And then finally, in Batman 656, we see the first full appearance of Damian Wayne. And then the next issue in 657, he first appears as Robin. Now, he's been Robin in a ton of animated properties. He's been in The Brave and the Bold, Teen Titans Go, DC Supergirls. So he's been very mainstream as Robin in animated fare, especially fare that's geared towards kids. He's also been in the Injustice video game series, but we have yet to see Damian Wayne in live action. Now, it's a little bit tricky because I don't think DC's quite known how to deal with Robin in the movies over the last, 10 or 20 years. There wasn't really Robin in the Christopher Nolan series. The Batman v Superman showed that there was a Robin who had been killed. Now, we have seen 3 different Robins in the Titans TV series. Dick Grayson, who becomes Nightwing, Jason Todd, who becomes the Red Hood, and not yet Robin, but Tim Drake. But we have yet to see Damian Wayne. It would require some setup, so I don't think he's coming very quickly, but too interesting a character. And one of the more popular characters in DC right now, having his own title, too interesting and popular character for DC to ignore. Let's go to number 2 on the list. And number 2 on the list, premiering here in All-Star Comics number 58 in January, February of 1976, is right there, Power Girl. Created by Jerry Conway, Rick Estrada, and Wally Wood. This series was set on Earth 2 with the Justice Society of America, the original heroes from the 1940s. And Power Girl was the cousin of Superman, who was older than him when Krypton exploded, and her father, Jor-El, the brother of Superman's father, Jor-El, with an L, not an EL, in Earth 2, both sent their children to Earth. Kal-El, Superman is a baby. Power Girl a little bit older. But it took her craft a very long time to get there. And she didn't get there until 1976. At which point she was a full-grown young woman. And Power Girl was rather full-grown. She did appear, and she was one of the most popular characters in the Justice Society as the All-Star Comics ran through the 1970s, and then the feature went into Adventure Comics for a while. The annual crossovers with the Justice League almost always included Power Girl. She did have her own tryout run in Showcase, issues 97 to 99. And then Crisis on Infinite Earths happened, where there was no longer an Earth 2. And there was only one Superman that she was not the cousin of. Supergirl had been killed, so they had to explain who this character was. Originally, she was a descendant of Arion, who was the Lord of Ancient Atlantis, and her origin has been very, very convoluted since then. She still is considered Superman's cousin, but from another reality, and it's a little bit difficult to untangle. She did have her own miniseries for the first time in 1988. She's had her own ongoing series. Now, we've never seen her in live action. There have been hints during the Smallville TV series, characters that could have been Power Girl, but we've never seen Power Girl as herself. She's a little bit more difficult character to introduce because she's harder to explain, but she's such a popular character that I think in the long run, DC has to find a way to include her in live action. Again, if they ever get their act together. Let's go to number 1 on the list. And the number 1 character we've yet to see in live action is Jon Stewart, Green Lantern, who made his first appearance here in Green Lantern 87 in December 1971, January 1972, as an alternate Green Lantern on Earth. He was created by Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams, had this iconic cover, and he's also the first African-American superhero in DC Comics history. His second appearance was in Justice League of America 110, where he helps out the team when Hal Jordan is incapacitated because he slipped in the shower and hit his head. He was fine, though. Originally, he was an architect. Later, retcons had him be a U.S. Marine veteran. Now, in 1984, in Green Lantern number 182, Hal Jordan gives up being Green Lantern, and Jon Stewart takes over as the primary Green Lantern of Space Sector 2814, which is basically the Green Lantern of Earth. Currently, he's being rebranded as Emerald Knight with a K. Now, a lot of people primarily remember Jon Stewart as the main Green Lantern in the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited animated TV series that ran from 2001 to 2006. Now, there have been hints in the Arrowverse that John Diggle was going to be a Green Lantern, that somehow, like, his name was really Jon Stewart. That really never came to pass, so that does not count. Now, there was plan to use Jon Stewart in the George Miller planned Justice League movie that was kind of hinted about in 2007. That never came to fruition. And even Zack Snyder had planned to use the actor Wayne T. Carr to play Green Lantern, and even was going to use him in the Snyder cut of the Justice League movie that premiered on HBO Max, but DC was like, no, we got other plans for him. And that's why at the very end of the Snyder cut, sorry, spoiler warning, they used Martian Manhunter instead. Now, here's interesting, because I did not include on the list any of the Green Lanterns that have been cast or have been discussed to be part of the HBO Max Green Lantern TV series, and that includes Kyle Rayner, Guy Gardner, and Alan Scott. We didn't even see Jon Stewart in the Ryan Reynolds movie. Again, if DC and Discovery Warner ever get their act together, Jon Stewart, I think, is going to be a player. He's going to be a character that they will use. And I think he's going to be a character with a large role in whatever they do, if they do have a cohesive universe. I also believe that the original plans were not to use either Hal Jordan or Jon Stewart in the HBO Max series, maybe hint at them, and then use them in a feature film. Now, it's clear with the cancellation of Batgirl that Discovery Warner Brothers wants to build tentpole, big event feature films more than HBO Max films. They might, much like Marvel's done, use HBO Max to have TV series that complement the movies and develop other characters. That's fine. But I think we are going to see Jon Stewart on the big screen at some point. Again, the timeline for DC is completely unpredictable, and there's a lot of unknowns, but I think he's the most intriguing character that we have never seen in live action. Well, that's it for my top 10 of these characters. We talked about their first appearances, and some of these characters are characters that I've been speculating on because we haven't seen them yet, and I think it's inevitable that we will see them. So let me know in the comments below what characters that we haven't seen would you like to see in DC live action. Now remember, some of these characters we have seen, and you may have forgotten about it. Especially if it was like on a later season of Smallville. There are a lot of characters that we've seen. They might have been hidden somewhere in an episode or two of an Arrowverse show. But these are the characters I researched. They never appeared in live action. A lot of them have had primary roles and big-time appearances, even their own shows in animated form. 3 of them had their own shows, right? Plastic Man, Static, and Batman Beyond. Okay, again, what do you think of the list? Who do you want to see in live action that I did not include on the list? Or of the list, who is your favorite that you would want to see in live action? So, anyway, in the meantime, while you're leaving your comments, you can take a look at a couple of my other videos over here. I think I finally have my orientation right, that those will pop up over here. And again, let me know in the comments below. And this is Jim saying until next time, enjoy your comics.